Welcome to Cheat Sheet Tales, where secrets slip, lies unravel, and the truth always has a twist. Real stories, raw confessions, and shocking betrayals. Drop a comment if you've ever caught a red flag too late. Now let's get into today's tale. My so-called golden brother hired a private investigator to prove I was a failure. But instead of finding shame, he uncovered a reality that shattered everything he and the rest of my family thought they knew about me. I grew up in a quiet, little village where everyone knew everyone, and secrets didn't stay buried for long. I was the middle child, always caught in the strange tug-of-war between invisibility and scrutiny. My father was a man of few words, a hardworking, emotionally distant presence, who now talks about retirement like it's the only thing left for him. My mother, on the other hand, was the textbook definition of tradition. Clean house, conservative values, and absolutely no patience for deviation, as I. Much as I loved my parents, I always knew I wasn't what they wanted. I wasn't the son they pictured raising. That role went to my older brother, Mr. Perfect. He had the charm, the wife who never raised her voice, and two rowdy boys who practically lived on the football field. Everything about his life was loud, athletic, and manly, everything I wasn't. He always acted like he was doing me a favor by mentoring me, but it never felt like guidance. It felt like condescension, like I was some project he'd taken on to fix and flaunt. At family dinners, he'd boast about his powerboat, his massive house, his ATVs, and somehow pivot that into advice I never asked for. Every word out of his mouth chipped away at my self-worth. And so I shrunk. I became the quiet one, the soft one, sensitive, awkward, and asthmatic, the kid who couldn't throw a ball straight, the one who cried when he got picked last, or not at all. To them, I was fragile, weak, a disappointment. It didn't help that my parents treated asthma like it was all in my head. Depression? Same thing. Just snap out of it, they'd say, as if it were that simple. I tried to push through school, but I was never more than average. I barely scraped through high school with a 2.5 GPA and dropped out of college in my second year. That, of course, was scandalous in our family, especially when stacked against my brother's sparkling image and my younger sister's picture-perfect wedding at 19. I barely knew my sister growing up. She was still a teenager when I moved out. As an adult, she turned into a mini version of our parents. Sugar-coated on the surface, subtly cruel underneath, not a terrible person. Just compliant, easier to play along with the golden child narrative than question it. The only time I saw a glimmer of something real was when I looked at her middle child, a girl always a little left out, always trying to find her place. Saw myself in her. After leaving college, I leaned into what I loved, nerdy stuff, comics, games, all of it. I got a job at a local comic and game store, and I actually loved it. Until it closed about 7 years ago. My parents still talk about me like I work there, as if time stopped when they stopped paying attention, but they missed what happened next. I met another geek like me, and we started an IT support company together. It grew fast. Eventually, we sold it to a bigger tech firm, and I walked away with a solid buyout, cash and stock options. I invested wisely, took on side projects, and built myself a quiet fortune. Today, I'm the CTO of a promising startup. I own a modest 2-bedroom home, furnished with secondhand finds I love. My car is old, but it runs fine. I may be worth over $1 million, but I live like I have nothing to prove, because I don't. Still, I battle my demons, depression, a drinking problem I manage with therapy, and a family that never took any of it seriously. Every Sunday, I drive 2 hours round trip for dinner with my parents. They think I have nothing better to do. No spouse, no kids, just the mental case of the family. These dinners are torture. 3 hours of lectures on how to be a real adult. Stories about my brother's latest big sale, and sideways comments implying I'm wasting my life. If I miss a dinner, the guilt trip is instant. The whispers about how I don't pull my weight follow soon after. Worst of all, they still tell people I work at that long-shuttered game store. My achievements don't fit their image of me, so they pretend they don't exist. When I try to talk about my work, my brother talks over me, every single time, acting like I'm some kid dabbling in nonsense, and I let him. I was afraid afraid that if I explained what I really do, they'd still laugh. Or worse, not care at all. Then came the twist no one saw coming. My brother hired a private investigator, not to protect the family, not to help anyone. No, he wanted dirt, proof that I was a loser, that I wasn't worth their time. Instead, he found everything: my job, my assets, my house, my life. He uncovered the truth, and in the process, I got the security alerts, unauthorized. Attempts on my credit report, notifications from watchdog services. Being in tech, I put the puzzle together fast and traced the source. It led right back to him. I was furious, humiliated, violated. So I did something I never imagined I would. Hired the same private investigator to look into him. And what I found? The golden boy was a fraud. He was drowning in debt, behind on taxes, living off loans. There were old arrests for public intoxication and domestic disturbances, even a file with Child Protective Services. His finances were a disaster zone, he thought. Wasn't just overextended, he was imploding. And suddenly I had the power he always held over me. When my family finally discovered the truth about my financial success, it didn't feel like vindication. It felt like betrayal, all over again, just wearing a different mask. The same people who once dismissed me as a failure were now eyeing me like I was a golden goose. I knew that look. I'd seen it before. I had watched them do the same thing to my brother when they thought he was rolling in cash. Now that they believed I had more, it was my turn. And yet deep down, I couldn't completely erase the memories. The roof over my head, the warm meals, the clean clothes they gave me as a child. That's the emotional trap, isn't it? Gratitude fighting with resentment. I had to admit that my parents gave me the basics, but never the love or validation I so desperately needed. I brought all of this to therapy, of course. Dr. Bennett has been a lifeline in this storm of emotions. We've been untangling years of buried hurt, untold truths, and unspoken boundaries. I'm learning how to draw a line, not just a wall to keep people out, but a perimeter to protect what I've built and what I'm still building. As a kid, I was never the favorite. My brother tormented me relentlessly, shoving, mocking, shouting, and my parents acted like it was just boys being boys. No bruises, no broken bones. So, in their eyes, there was no harm done. But verbal abuse leaves scars you can't see. And when the people who are supposed to protect you pretend nothing happened, it cuts even deeper. I've carried that pain for decades. And honestly, I'm tired. Tired of defending myself. Tired of shrinking in their presence. Tired of making space for people who never made any for me. I've reached the point where I know distance doesn't make me a bad son. It makes me a sane one. But stepping away is never that simple. What happens if I meet someone I want to share my life with, maybe even start a family with? How do I explain the dysfunctional circus I came from without poisoning something new and beautiful before it even has a chance to grow? These questions haunted me. And then the internet offered something strange: validation from strangers. People who heard my story told me what I couldn't tell myself, that I wasn't the problem, that my family's manipulation and greed said more about them than it ever did about me, that my worth wasn't defined by their inability to see it. Their messages struck something in me. I had built a life, a good one. I didn't owe anyone an explanation for my success, nor did I need to sacrifice my peace for people who only showed up when it benefited them. So I took action. I froze my credit. I checked into how my brother accessed my data and filed reports where necessary. If he used his dealership systems, there could be consequences. I consulted a lawyer to update my will and ensure my assets wouldn't default to the people who once scoffed at my childish passions. No more blind trust. No more vulnerability without protection. And then came the update that changed everything. After that disastrous dinner, the verbal battlefield that left my family splintered, I drove home in a daze. The roads were quiet. The night, unusually still. I remember gripping the steering wheel, not from tension, but from resolve. I knew something had to give. I couldn't keep doing these Sunday dinners. They were emotional landmines, So I threw myself into work, therapy, and healing. My home, littered with gadgets, comic books, and memorabilia, became more than a living space. It became a sanctuary, a place where I didn't have to perform or defend myself. With each therapy session, I learned how to separate without severing, how to build emotional distance without becoming bitter. And as spring warmed the air, a new thought blossomed. Maybe I could find someone. Maybe I was finally in a place to love and be loved without fear. And just like that, Renee entered my life. We met at a cybersecurity conference. Her talk was magnetic, not just in content, but in presence. She spoke with confidence, intelligence, and empathy. We clicked instantly. Renee didn't just get the tech world. She understood me. She respected boundaries and believed in building families based on mutual respect, not outdated obligations. Of course, the looming question was inevitable. How do I introduce Renee to my family? Our solution: keep it light, keep it short, no overnights, no Sunday marathons, just casual coffee meetups with the family, dipping a toe into those chaotic waters without diving in. Surprisingly, Renee agreed. More than that, she supported me through it. And somehow, it worked. At first, my parents were stiff and overly courteous. My brother looked like a man choking on unspoken words. But Renee, she brought a sense of calm. She bonded instantly with my sister's middle child, my mini-me. Those small visits became a lifeline I could reconnect without being consumed. Eventually, my family seemed to understand that this was the only way they could still be part of my life. They started treading more carefully the boundaries I had. Fought to erect were finally being respected. Renee and I started imagining a future together. Long walks turned into deeper conversations. One evening by the lake, she brought up the idea of living together. It stopped me in my tracks, not out of fear, but out of awe. I'd come so far from unwanted middle child to a man envisioning a peaceful future built on love and agency, and I was ready not just to cohabitate, but to live on my own terms. The Sunday dinners, they still happen, but on my terms. Sometimes we go, sometimes we don't, and when we do, Renee and I debrief together afterward. We don't let the past sneak back in through the back door. We face it together. Of course, not everything is perfect. My family still has its cracks, but I've learned to manage them without letting them widen into chasms. Balance is the goal, not perfection, just peace. I'm still learning how to open up, how to share my story without shame. But here I am. I'm building something new, something better. There was a moment, a flash in my son's eyes, that broke something inside me as I handed Eli his overnight bag. Tears welled up in his tiny eyes, and then he asked the question no child should ever have to carry. Are you taking us away because you hate us like your mother says? I froze. My heart dropped like it had been yanked straight from my chest. That small, shaking voice, so full of pain and confusion, cut deeper than anything my parents ever said, and that saying something, I crouched down and pulled him into a hug, holding him tighter than I ever had before. I love you, I whispered more than anything. That's the truth. But no matter how many times I said it, I couldn't erase what Morgan had already planted in their minds. What started as a bitter divorce had turned into something much uglier. Morgan, my soon-to-be ex-wife, wasn't just fighting me in court anymore. She was fighting me for control of our children's hearts. She told Nora that I didn't love them, that I hated them, that I was breaking our family apart, and worse, she made them believe it. The Morgan I once knew, the woman I married, the mother of my children, was gone. In her place stood someone cold, bitter, and manipulative. Her newfound sexual identity wasn't the issue, it was her actions, her betrayal, and her obsession with control, sleeping with my coworker. That was painful, but using our kids as pawns, that was unforgivable. She played the fun parent. Now the vacations to grandma's the new friend. AP showering Nora and Eli with candy and gifts, it wasn't love. It was strategy, and it was working, slowly but surely. I could see the wedge being driven between us. Every visit became a minefield. The kids were quiet, distant. Especially Nora, she used to light up when she saw me now. She hesitated. I could see her struggling, torn between her loyalty to me and the lies she was being fed. It devastated me. I knew I couldn't stand by anymore. This wasn't just about divorce. This was about survival. There, Survivally started documenting everything. Every interaction, every manipulation, every whisper. Morgan slipped into their ears. My lawyer was the first to know. And if things got worse, CPS would be next, because my children deserve more than this. They deserve peace, stability, love that isn't conditional or manipulative, and I was going to give it to them even if I had to fight tooth and nail through every courtroom in the state. Nora was already showing signs of distress she told me she felt. Guilty for loving me. Guilty, my daughter. My little girl was being taught that her love had to come with permission. I couldn't let that go unchecked, not anymore. I'm not just doing this for me, I'm doing this for them to break the cycle to make sure. They grow up knowing love doesn't have to hurt, that family isn't defined by shame or silence or betrayal, but by truth, healing, and fierce protection. If I have to start over, so be it. I've rebuilt myself before I can do it again, but this time I'll be building a life where my kids can thrive, where they'll never have to ask if they're loved, where no one gets to rewrite their story, but them. This story is a powerful reminder that family doesn't always mean emotional safety, and that breaking free from toxic familial roles is not betrayal, but an act of survival and self-respect. For years, the narrator was cast in the role of the failure enduring verbal abuse, neglect, and comparison to a so-called golden sibling, despite internalizing this pain. They quietly built a life of success, integrity, and resilience. When their accomplishments finally came to light, the family's response wasn't celebration. It was exploitation. This shift revealed a painful truth: some people only value you when they see what they can take from you. But this story teaches us that worth is not dictated by family opinion or public perception. True worth comes from how we rise after being pushed down, how we set boundaries to protect our peace, and how we learn to love ourselves enough to stop chasing validation from those who refuse to see us. It also underscores the generational impact of unresolved trauma. The narrator's decision to shield their own children from manipulation shows the power of conscious parenting, the choice to stop cycles of emotional harm, even if it means going to war for your child's well-being. At its core, this story is about reclaiming agency, standing tall in your truth, and building a life on your own terms. Healing isn't loud or flashy. It's found in small, quiet victories, like choosing therapy, showing up for your kids, or walking away from family dinners that leave you shattered. It's in creating new definitions of love, success, and family, and it's in remembering that we are not obligated to keep the people in our lives just because they share our blood. Respect, love, and support must be earned, never demanded. Thanks so much for watching this story unfold. If it resonated with you or gave you something to think about, drop a 1 in the comments to let us know you got value from it. Your support means the world to us, and it helps more people find these powerful, real-life stories. Don't forget to like the video if you felt moved, and subscribe to the channel so you never miss a story that might just reflect something from your own life. And if you know someone who could benefit from hearing this, someone struggling with family dynamics, boundaries, or healing, share this video with them. We'd also love to hear from you. What part of the story hit you the hardest? Have you ever faced something similar? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We read every single one. Until next time, take care of yourselves, and remember, your story matters. Your story matters.